watching that part of the show. I hope you enjoyed seeing some really cool items. We're going to do a little bit of a transition right now. We're going to be talking about the Q4 2017 shareholder conference call. So the first thing that most people are thinking of is, Jay, why is this important to me? I'm not a shareholder. I could really care much less about the back end of things, but I'm going to tell you right now, anytime anything big happens within the eBay and Amazon world, it is kind of important to you because we're talking about the future livelihood of your business and the direction you're going to be going. And if you can have the upper hand as a business owner, which is what you are as an eBay seller, you can have the upper hand by having this information early. The conference call itself was over an hour long, and some of the information was exceptionally complex to break down, and that's why I'm here today to be able to help you better understand some of the finer details that weren't really inside the cliff notes and my personal interpretation of what I took away from that call. Okay, so I have a whole bunch of choppy notes here, and I might be starting and stopping, but one of the first things that they mentioned is that they bought $922 million of their own shares back. Okay, they said that they believe that their share value was currently undervalued at this time. Basically, it's a strategic move by a business to buy back those shares, one, so they can increase the overall value of the remaining shares that are out there, plus they can also get more money back to their shareholders, which is kind of the bigger thing. On top of that, buying back their own shares allows them to have incentives for employees within the company. Now, it's not necessarily uncommon for businesses to do this, but it is kind of alarming the amount of shares that they bought and the time that they bought them. You know, eBay stock values are horrendously low comparatively speaking. Okay, we're going to get back to those stock values in a second, but I want everyone to take a guess who's kind of within the know. How much of a price difference do you think there is between an eBay share and an Amazon share? Put your comments down below. How many dollars of difference do you think there is between one share of eBay and one share of Amazon? So when eBay purchased back their own shares, they did it right before Christmas. Okay, they tried to soak it up. This is the time that eBay shares should be their strongest, but they weren't where they really should have been. On top of that, their acquisition of their own shares back didn't really have much impact on the market. Their prices stayed relatively similar to where they were a month before that. Okay. On top of that, they were approved to buy another $6 billion worth of their own shares, or they are, are approved to buy $6 billion worth in 2018, which is even more alarming than originally. So let me give you an idea of how far behind eBay and Amazon, or how far behind eBay is from Amazon. One share of eBay stock right now will run you the bargain price of $45. May seem like a lot, but one share of Amazon will run you $1,450. Okay, that is a 30 times difference between eBay and Amazon. Okay, now I've been saying this for about 2 years now, that eBay is kind of in this rat race to be able to catch back up to Amazon, and they are scrambling hard right now. They are really, really trying to become relevant. But the biggest problem is all these changes that eBay is making right now are changes that Amazon was first to market with years ago. Okay, what have we seen? We saw that Amazon was first to adopt a barcoding system for their platform. Amazon was the first to adopt a cataloging system for their platform. Amazon was the first to utilize a buy box option for their platform. Okay, eBay is coming behind years later, and they're scooping up all of these things. And we will talk about this buy box option here in a second as well. Okay, another big key point that they touched on was users using guaranteed delivery. Okay, they said 150 million users used guaranteed delivery during the holiday season. My real question to that is, how many were intentionally using it? Okay, if I have an item for sale and it's marked guaranteed delivery, unless the customer actually ticked that box where they were refining their searches down to only show guaranteed delivery items, how do you really know the value in doing that? This again is another play for eBay to try and catch up to Amazon. Why would it be important for an eBay customer to get an item guaranteed delivery or guaranteed speed? It probably has to do with the fact that Amazon has had Amazon Prime for going on, what, 6 or 7 plus years now, where you're getting 2-day or next day delivery on your items already. Amazon is desperately trying to catch up to that model as well. Okay, looking even further, they said 160,000 users have used their promoted listings And for me, that is a substantially small number comparative to the number of active users. Right now, eBay has 177 million active users on eBay. Okay, we're talking buyers and sellers alike. Let's just say we're only looking at 10% of that as being sellers. Let's say we're even looking at 5%. We're looking at roughly about 7 or 8 million users that are actually selling, and which is probably a very small number, granted, but it's kind of difficult to find that information. They don't like giving that away. We're still looking at a market penetration of less than, what, 2%, 3% market penetration for promoted listings. Those of you who don't know, promoted listings is considered one of eBay's new businesses. They call it a new business during this conference call. Why is it a new business? Because they're generating revenue off of a platform that didn't exist a few years back. If you've been receiving phone calls from eBay representatives like I have myself, I get a call every 3 months saying, hey, have you heard about the new stuff going on with eBay Promoted? We'd love it if you gave us a shot. Here's some credit. They gave me a $100 credit discount just to start using eBay Promoted listings. If somebody calls you, say, hey, can I get a credit for starting? So that's $100 worth of fees that I was able to have taken off just right off the top to start using promoted listings. Now, did I see an increase in sales? I don't know. And I hate to leave it at that, but there's no real way to tell that if my promoted listing is actually generating me more sales because I have it on and I'm getting higher presence, or if those people who are ready to buy those items were simply showing up. People ask me all the time, they're like, oh, I go on vacation mode and all of a sudden I get a ton of sales. It's because I'm turning vacation mode on. Or I've delisted items and I've relisted them again. Unfortunately, there's no way to really tell if that is a true cause and effect for seeing an increase in sales. Until eBay can come to the table with richer tools for sellers to be able to more closely monitor and to be able to follow things on their back end in a very digestible and user-friendly way, people are not going to start adopting promoted listings or taking money out of their own pocket and throwing it into it. Because we have to remember, there's a big difference between eBay and Amazon. I've been preaching this for a long time. eBay has been the platform that's been built for your everyday seller. It hasn't been built for the people that are going out and buying, 100,000 units of something and then trying to off them. Now, is there that example? Sure, okay? But when we look at the mass market of eBay, we're looking at about 98% of the users are people just like myself. We're making side income, we're making a little bit of primary income maybe, but we're not going to the $1 million a year level. We're talking 0.0001% of all users are hitting those super high tier numbers, okay? So unless they make this program accessible for someone like myself or somebody like yourself who's never considered an advertising budget for their business, it's simply not going to get adopted. And I think seeing 160,000 users in all of 2017 with as big of a push as they made for it, they made a push online, they made a push over the phone, they gave you the emails, they gave you the credits, they gave you all that stuff. Unless we see it more digestible and more user-friendly, it's not going to get adopted, okay? Here's the other part of it too. Even with the catalog being developed as much as it was, because we saw eBay's firm usage of the catalog, you can have a listing considered a faulty listing or even delisted if you don't have the product identifier. Let me give you an example, okay? We were just talking about a video game a second ago. We were talking about Clock Tower. If I go to list this item on eBay right now, I'm going to get prompted with an eBay catalog listing, okay? If I go mimic somebody else's listing, I'm going to get prompted with the eBay catalog listing, okay? Of all the items that are listed on eBay, take a guess at what percent you think are using eBay catalog right now. Because if we look back on Amazon, okay, minus private label, okay, people who are creating or, working with their own personal items that they're listing up, the Amazon catalog has a penetration close to, I'd probably say about 95%. 95% of all listings have a catalog feature to them. When we look at eBay, we're looking at 14%. Now, is that a really alarming number? No, and I'll tell you why. Because even if we look back at the item that Corey Barlow just showed us a few moments ago, and we look at that wonderful piece of, I think it was porcelain that he was showcasing worth all that money, there isn't going to be a catalog listing for that. They're apples and oranges. Why eBay is pushing and pushing and pushing this agenda of cataloging is insane. I know part of it has to do with the relationship with Google that they've been forming, and Google saying, hey, we're not going to feature your items in search unless you have your UPCs, and then those UPCs need a catalog, okay? I understand why they're doing it, but this type of rat race to catch up with a company that is not the same as their own makes no sense. It's as if I was a water park, okay, and I'm trying to catch up to a car dealership. Sure, there's some intrinsic similarities between the two of them. They're both entertaining, they both get customers, and they both generate revenue, but they don't have the same business model. eBay truly needs to abandon what it's doing, trying to catch up to Amazon, and really get its head on straight, okay? Going further on, okay, eBay also mentions during this conference call that they are going to be working with a new returns process, which is meant to make things easier, okay? Easier. How scary is that as a seller to hear that a buyer is going to have an easier time returning an item to you, okay? One, it's already bad enough that I have to have returns enabled just to be a top-rated seller. So what do I do on my end? I had a 20% restock fee. I put that if you're the one returning the item and it's not my fault, you're going to be paying the return shipping as well. Can a customer return an item to me? Sure, go ahead and send it back. But you better have a good reason for it, and you better be the one paying for it. I shouldn't have to pay for it. Now, eBay, they said a few things about this, but they were saying that they are attempting to use AI, artificial intelligence, to help streamline the return process. Holy cow, that's horrifying, okay? They had used this a little bit, I'd probably say about 3 years ago. Whenever a claim was opened and the value of the item was less than, I believe, $12.99, you could automatically get your claim approved, get your refund sent without even having to open a case. eBay was just swallowing those. They were just eating them up and saying, okay, $3, $5, $7, $8, and they're just taking that money and losing it because that was cheaper than having a representative on the phone. Okay, so now what they're saying is they want to use smart AI to be able to break down what's happening on the case, why the person's opening the case, and what the decision should be on that case without a human intervening. Horrifying. Why? The amount of abuse that I can see coming from this is just going to be astronomical. If you're one of those people already, and I know some of you are, where you're worried about returns, and you get those messages in, and you get an eBay message, and the first thing you think is like, oh my God, please don't let it be a return. How would you like it if that message came in and it said, you've lost your return? You didn't even get a chance to fight it. So what's going to end up happening is we're going to see the AI. It's going to struggle a lot in the beginning. There's going to be a lot of phone calls coming into eBay. On top of that, eBay also stated they're bringing more of those international phone positions, the ones that are in India and Pakistan, they're going to be bringing them back to the States. Now, part of this is the tax situation that's going on. The taxes that they're dealing with these new, even with the government credit, it does not offset their minimum tax requirements per year. Bringing more of those jobs home here to the States is part of that, but at the same time, with this AI going through and learning the process, they need trained and qualified American representatives here in the States to be able to take that to the next level and make sure that the right decisions are being made. And when the wrong decisions are being made, they need to know concretely that someone who knows what they're doing is the one who's going to be able to fix that problem. You have to forgive me for every time I look outside. We've had a weather advisory going on for the last few hours, and it looks like the storm is getting ready to kick up right now. So yeah, keep your eyes open for that. The next thing that really caught my attention, we talked about last week. We talked about Adyen, okay? The PayPal replacement, the new intermediary. I have a first update. It's not pronounced Adyen. I had no clue. Adyen. Adyen. Okay, that's how we're supposed to pronounce it. That is the name of the new service that's going to be replacing PayPal. Holy cow, did I learn a lot about that because of this call. One of the big things that they emphasized was on the technology end of things. We talked about this too. Adyen having a lot of protection because its servers are in-house. They're not renting any servers. Now, it doesn't come as a surprise to anyone that eBay would be ready to make this split from PayPal. There's a few reasons for it. One, PayPal's had multiple breaches. Two, they used to be the same company way back when, and they split because they had the look of a monopoly, and they didn't really want that. Okay, and finally, the cost. Being a partner with PayPal is not a cheap option. Okay, so what's going to be happening here is that Adyen is talking about having a single fee for the buyer. Because right now we have a couple of different fees that we're assessed. We're assessed a transaction fee, and we're assessed a percentage fee based on that transaction. The idea is to be able to offer a single transaction fee at a reduced cost to the buyer. Okay, we're going to be talking about ADN for a little bit because what was real telling, and Marcy had mentioned this in the group chat, what was exceptionally telling was the fact that when the Q&A started for this conference call, a majority of the questions, I'd probably say the first 4 or 5 questions, had to do with payment processing. People wanted more information. It's never good when you have a company the size of eBay and you have your shareholders calling in, and not just any shareholders. Goldman Sachs was on the line, okay? Big name, Bank of America was on the line. Big name shareholders calling in, asking questions about the payment processing. Okay, so the big thing is that, 1, they're looking to make it a single fee, and 2, they're saying that they're planning to generate an additional $2 billion, with a B as in boy, $2 billion worth of additional positive cash flow over the course of 2018, 2019, and 2020 by doing this transition. And I want to be very clear too, we talked about this last week. ADN is not going to be an option for eBay. ADN is going to be the new gold standard for eBay. Does that mean PayPal is going to be gone? Yes, but not right away. PayPal, they have an agreement with them until 2020, and things are going to kind of stay the same, where PayPal will still be very present, very much so the primary option. But as we move into the second part of their agreement, when we're looking at 2020 to 2023, we're going to see PayPal really slip away. eBay has a plan in place right now to try and make this transition a little bit smoother for people. They're going to be slowly asking you for more and more of your sensitive information. They're not going to ask you for it all at once, but they're going to try and slowly build that trust in you. Now, they even stated that this decision was one of potential consequence. Potential consequence. And forgive these air quotes. I'm doing these a lot right now because there's so many little words that were not talked about in the highlights and the notes about what was going on. These potential consequences could be the absolute fallout of their user base, because we're not just talking about sellers, me and you, having to adopt ADN. We're talking about 177 million active buyers having to adopt ADN. Okay? So, have other companies successfully pulled this off? Yes. Yes, they have. We have the Amazon option. We have the Apple option. We have Apple Pay. We have Amazon something. We have the Google Wallet. We have the Samsung Pay. Other companies, have they pulled this off? Yes. Yes, they have. But what are the adoption levels like? They're pretty bad. When was the last time you saw somebody pay with Apple Pay at a cash register? Have you ever seen somebody pay with Apple Pay at a cash register? I want you to think about contactless credit cards, the ones where you just touch them on the terminal. Have you used one? Have you seen somebody else use one? Okay? Technology takes a long time to really roll out and become adopted. And when you come to me and you say, hey, those PayPal cards you have, they're not going to be the gold standard anymore. We're going to need you to get rid of those, and we're going to be bringing in a new payment processor. That's kind of horrifying, okay? Especially in the market that we're in. We have a company that's already super far behind, and I don't think this is the best play for them. But it really depends on what they're going to be doing with it. And I hate to say this too. We have a lot of buts and a lot of hypotheticals about what could theoretically happen with this or what could theoretically happen with that. Okay, it's hard to tack it down as why. Okay, now there is the theory out there that this ADN payment platform, which is already a leading platform globally, eBay is doing this in-house. They are going to have a lot more control over what actually happens with that IP than a lot of people realize. Now, will this be something that's going to work its way to Target and Walmart and Toys R Us? Are you going to be able to go to the register and use ADN to check out? Maybe, okay? And if eBay has their hand in there, that could be really good for eBay. Now, diversification isn't new to eBay either. A lot of people don't know this, but eBay owns a lot of brands. Not only do they have their obvious eBay brand with their in-house of the promoted listings, they own StubHub as well. They also own the eBay Classifieds platform. Not a big platform, made $266 million last year, but it's still a strong platform. I believe StubHub was somewhere in the area of, God, I don't even know if I have the numbers for StubHub. I think it was like $300 million worth of profits last year. Okay, so these other brands that they have, it kind of feels as if those brands are doing a little bit of subsidizing for the overall umbrella of eBay to make sure that they get through another year. They even said it themselves. The projected growth that they had last year was not on par with what they had originally assumed. It wasn't even the same level of growth that they had the year before. Okay, so you have a company that has slower growth. Not the end of the world, sure, but if you have a company that's getting larger and it should be scaling and should be growing, if somebody came to you and said Apple had a bad year this year, you'd be a little bit confused. Or if Netflix or if Amazon had a bad year, we need to have that same level of cynicism and the same level of criticism towards eBay for having a bad year too. Anyone have any questions? I know I'm just chopping through a bunch of information right now, but if there's any questions you have regarding insights or anything like that on how I feel about this, feel free to fire them over. So the first question that a seller had, or excuse me, first question that a investor had on the call was about what the goals were with this change. And they said one of their key goals was to lower the cost to sellers. Okay, it sounds really enticing, but I have to ask, how many percentage points of difference is it going to take to entice new sellers to the platform? Right now, we're looking at somewhere between 10 and 15% to sell a single item. When we look at eBay, PayPal, we're looking at fees and listing costs and everything. When we factor in our monthly dues, 10 to 15% on each and every item that sells. If you bring that down to 9 to 14, 8 to 13, 7 to 12, is that really enough to stimulate more people to come to the platform for the first time? I don't really think it is. Okay. The next question that was fired out. Oh yeah. People were asking about the StubHub brand and why it had huge growth in 2017. eBay openly admitted that they have no control over what happens with StubHub. And I'm not going to stay on this topic long because it's not hyper relevant, but that's another one of their brands that they don't control the flow of. It all boils down to how good is the season, how good is the climate for buyers and sellers to actually utilize the service. I guess we can kind of have a little bit of a takeaway. What is the climate like? StubHub had an amazing year, an astronomically great year this year, and I can tell you why. And they didn't really want to talk about why. It's because there was droves of people dumping NFL tickets onto StubHub because people had their season passes early in the season, and guess what? They didn't want to watch football anymore. NFL ratings are at historic lows right now, okay? And obviously we know why. I'm not going to get into the politics of why that is, but that's why this year was one of the best years ever for StubHub. People were just dumping their tickets like wild. Now, coming into next year, are we going to see the same thing again? No. I'm going to mark my word right now, StubHub will have one of the worst years of growth coming into next year, and part of that's going to be due to the fact that they are super comfortable right now. I believe they're looking at 13 points worth of growth last year, which is just massive for a company that size to go 13 points up. It was amazing, okay? But I can tell you right now, next year, we're probably going to be looking at sub 5 points worth of growth, possibly even a situation where that company is either going to break even or even take a loss next year. Now, when one part of eBay has an issue and they're losing money and they're bleeding, guess what? They're going to have to make that money up elsewhere. When it comes time to draw up the agreements with Adyen, and they've even said themselves, we haven't figured the prices out yet. If one of their other brands is bleeding money, they're going to have to make it up on their big horse. They're going to have to rake in a few more dollars off of that. So it's certainly something to watch out for and watch the climate going into next year because it's going to be really interesting. So that was what I took away from the Q4 conference call. If anyone has any questions regarding that, feel free to fire them over. I'm going to look back over here at my show notes, see what else that we were going to be going over today. Oh yeah, eBay's new buy box program. So there was a lot of chatter on social media in different buying, selling, trading, thrifting, and even inside of group chat regarding this buy box program. I want to tell you, this buy box program has been around for a while. We've seen it since August 2017, and for some reason this conference call really seemed to bring out a lot of concerns for people, and people asking, what's going to happen with my business? Am I going to be able to sell anything anymore? Is this the end of the world? So basically what's happening, I don't know if I have a slide available. Let me see if I can pull one up really quick. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry, Okay, so eBay implements buy box style format. So if you're looking here, you're going to see some images right now. So this is the format that we're talking about. We're talking about this where you have your brand new lowest price and your pre-owned lowest price. And basically, they're trying to steer customers to the item that they want simply because they're worried that that by having so many listings online that people aren't going to be able to find what they're looking. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me get that screen switched over. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, people are worried that eBay buyers are unable to find the items that they're looking for. Part of that has to do with there's so many duplicate listings. And yes, this is why they're trying to catalog things down. If I type in iPhone 7 into eBay right now, I'm going to see 45,000 listings at least for that iPhone 7 search. That's hyper overwhelming to a lot of people. People go on Amazon because they type in iPhone 7 and boom, they're seeing iPhone 7s, they're picking their make, they're picking their model, they're picking all that stuff. It's the same exact concept again. Now, how is this going to impact you as a seller? Well, if you're doing everything right, it's not going to impact you too much. I've always said that when you're listing items up, you need to be the cheapest one available at the time that you're listing it. So if you're doing everything correctly, guess what? Your items are going to be flying out even quicker because you're going to get top placement exposure regardless of your seller standards, okay? You could have a couple of bad feedbacks. You could have a kind of crummy picture on your listing. If you are the cheapest one on there, boom, your item is going to be the first one to sell when that eligible buyer comes along to buy it. So I know what you're thinking, like, Jay, why do I have to be the cheapest on my item I list? That's just kind of how eBay works. If you have an item that's worth $50, okay, but you say, I'm going to list it for $70, I'm just going to wait it out, but there's 110 buyers before your listing comes at $70, you're not going to sell your item, okay? But if you list yours at $49.99 and now you're the cheapest, the first eligible buyer to come along is going to buy it. And then you're like, Jay, well, I don't want to sell it for that cheap. You know, I definitely feel it's worth more. You can feel that all you want. Or you can say, Jay, I paid a lot more for this item. I paid like $40. I have to sell it for 70. You shouldn't have bought it for 40. Okay? That's what I'm getting at right here is by saying that is that as long as you're doing everything correctly as a seller, this little transition and this little change isn't going to have to be something that you're going to have to be super worried about. Okay? So any questions regarding that buy box?